Welcome to the audiovisual series for Outstanding Leaders, a project of the International College of Dentists. And I'm delighted to be here with Dr. Charles McCallum, our guest today. Dr. McCallum is a distinguished professor emeritus and the former president of the University of Alabama at Birmingham. He's also been the dean and vice president for health affairs and director of the medical center. Welcome.
Great to be here in Washington with you today, and I appreciate so very much the invitation.
Well, I am glad that you're here. And let me just start with the nickname that everybody calls you, Scotty. Where did that come from?
I received that when I was at Wesleyan University in Middletown, Connecticut. I belonged to a fraternity, and they had what they call a chit-chat club there. And everybody had to have a nickname. One person's name was Stone, so they called him Chip. Another one was Graves, and they called him Digger. They sort of juggle around what they'd call me, and it was between the name Barrel. Had nothing to do with the amount of water I drank. But they came up with Scotty because of the McCallum, which is a Scott name. And so it's sort of stuck with me ever since. My family used to call me Chuck or Chip, but Scotty is what's stuck over the years. And so everybody calls me Scotty.
Do you mind if I call you Scotty?
Absolutely not.
I'm glad. You said your family came from Scotland. When did they come over?
Oh, it's about 3 or 4 generations ago. And on my dad's side and my mother's side came from Ireland. And they settled, they met in Rhode Island, were married. And there's one thing that they were dedicated to, that they were going to educate their children. Neither of them had the opportunity of a college education. And there was one thing for sure, that the 3 of us, my older sister and my younger brother and myself, were going to go to college. And that was their goal.
So you were a middle child.
Middle child.
How did that feel? How far between your older brother and younger sister?
My sister was 10 years older than I,
older.
And myself, and my younger brother was 4 years younger. And we were a great family.
And so what did your parents do?
My mom was a housewife, involved in a lot of community affairs. Dad went to Brown at night, never graduated from Brown University, but took up civil engineering, was a civil engineer for the city of Pawtucket, and then went to work with private contractors and built roads all over New England and dams and this sort of thing. He was a remarkable man, would go in and did the job, and then if they were awarded it, he'd come in and build it, and worked for construction companies, did very, very well. And wherever he worked in the summertime, we would be taken out of school in April and moved to near where he was, and we wouldn't come back until late October. So my mother was sort of a teacher at home during the times that we would be absent, so that we could be with Dad. Because during the rest of the year, he would only come home on late Saturday night. We'd see him Sunday, and he'd go back to work Sunday night.
So keeping the family together was really important.
Oh, you bet. Great group.
And actually opening up and building roads is something that you've done your whole life as well.
Well,
Pathways.
I've gone down a lot of them. It's been a lot of fun.
Now, you were born in Massachusetts.
Yes.
But tell me about your growing up years and what it was like to be a child during that time.
Well, I lived initially in Rhode Island, Pawtucket, East Avenue. I remember riding a tricycle around the Roger Smith Park down there, and then my family moved to Connecticut, a little place called Hazardville. And it was a very small town, about 1,800 people. You got to know people. You knew everybody in town. My dad helped establish a Boy Scout troop. We went to Hazardville High. You knew all your teachers very well, and it was a nice small community, and we had a lot of fun together growing up there. And then we were bused to go to Thompsonville or Enfield High School, which was larger, and I stayed there until my parents thought that I wasn't getting appropriate education. And so in my senior year, they pulled me out of high school and sent me off to Wilbraham Academy, which I thought was cruel. I had all my friends, including a girlfriend, and playing baseball and football and ice hockey, and so I was sent off to separated. Greatest thing my parents ever did for me.
So that was a boarding school?
Yes, and it was, you got home if you made good grades, and the first time I got home was at Thanksgiving. But it was a great school, and it gave me a great background. And
was that just for the year?
Just for 1 year to finish it off. I was making satisfactory grades at Enfield High, but they thought I wasn't being challenged. So they put me to a place that I was challenged by some wonderful teachers.
And then did that catapult you off to college?
No, that was during World War II when I graduated. And so I went in I enlisted in the Naval Air Corps and went into the Navy when I was on my 18th birthday. That was my birthday present. And
well, tell me about those 2 years in the Navy.
Great experience. Great experience. Matured you quickly. When you get a Marine drill sergeant getting you up in the morning and regimenting you, and it was a great experience.
Looking back, was it a great experience? What was it like as an 18-year-old?
It was fun.
It was hard?
It was hard. They were very demanding. But not only the drills, but also the academics. You had to learn a lot of things relative to navigation. And so you went to classes and you drilled and you had to use your time. And it was a great experience. It matured me in a hurry. And when I came out, I was ready to go to college.
Now, you went to 2 colleges.
Yes.
And tell me about those.
Well, I went to Wesleyan is where I did my pre-dental. And I went to that right after I got out of the service. And I was accepted then into dental school in 1947. And
why dental? How did you get interested in dental?
Well, when I was at Wesleyan, I was very interested in the sciences, and sort of I thought it all through, and I said, well, what can you do in science? You can be a teacher. Well, you don't want to be a teacher because teachers don't get paid well. Well, you could do research if you got involved in biology or chemistry. But I felt I wasn't original enough to be a researcher or have the qualifications. So I thought, well, one of the professions, medicine, long hours, no family time. Therefore, I don't think I better get into medicine. Dentistry. And I had been very close to our family dentist, Dr. Stowe in Hazardville, Connecticut, and thought he was a great guy and spent a little time there. So I selected dentistry and fortunately was admitted to Tufts Dental School and matriculated up there in '47 before I got my degree. So I went ahead and everybody in our class were veterans except 2 people, and one was a young lady and the other one was a young man, but all the other were veterans. And so we were an older group.
Other than Dr. Stowe, were there any other mentors or special individuals in your formative years?
My mom and dad.
Your mom and dad.
Oh boy, they're just
Tell me
great.
a little bit about their personalities. And
Dad was hardworking. Mother was a boss.
that sounds like a good thing.
And but Dad was hardworking. He'd leave for early in the morning to go to work, and he'd be gone and get home at night, 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. And when he was in town, and he was very dedicated to the family. I'll always thank him for taking a leadership role in forming the Scout troop in Hazardville, Connecticut. And my mother was a great, great gal. Wonderful personality, got my father involved in some community affairs, but she was the one that was out in the community with the women's club and other groups and this sort of thing. And they were just wonderful people, and they made sure their family got attention from them. They were the first priority. They enjoyed us.
So you could always go back to them if you needed advice?
Always. And my mother had a long life. My dad died rather young, but they were both great people.
Now, in dental school, what was it like those years in dental school?
Tough. I thought I'd do pretty well in dental school.
You'd been
and I got back
Navy.
my first exam in biochemistry, as I remember, and it was I think I got a 72, and I thought I'd got about a 92. And what it was a long equation, and I sort of had copied it down wrong in my notes. And so I got about the 4th from the bottom in the class in grades. It was the brightest group of people I've ever been associated with was that dental class. They were very, very bright. So I had to get in high gear, you know, if I was going to survive. But it was an exhilarating experience. It was fun. We had good teachers, and we started off in an old building and then moved to another building, and we didn't get into our clinical years until our second semester of our junior year, so we had a lot of catching up to do. And as I went along in dental school, I was very interested in dentistry, but I also wanted to think about doing other things, and perhaps maybe looking at medicine, even thought of transferring, but was advised, finish dental school. Bird in the hand is worth two in the bush.
Well, it sounds like when you were making a decision about what to do when you were in the Navy and then in college, you were debating between research and medicine and dentistry. You just took the first step into dentistry.
Right.
But then what happened? You realized there was something more you wanted to do after dental school.
Right. I wanted to, I enjoyed the clinical aspects of dentistry and also the interaction with patients. But I wanted to deal with even more and understand the body even more. And for that reason, I was thinking about going to medical school. I was advised not to. So as I thought about that, I thought, well, what is close to medicine and dentistry? And I looked at the specialty of oral and maxillofacial surgery. So I had the opportunity then to take a residency in oral and maxillofacial surgery when I graduated in 1951. And at that time, our dean at the School of Dentistry was Dr. Joseph Volker. And he had accepted in my junior year the deanship at the University of Alabama School of Dentistry in Birmingham. So he served as dean at Tufts because he had just become dean the year before, all the way through, if you would, my junior year, and then he started to recruit faculty, took some from Tufts and other areas, and I was offered the opportunity to go down there and become a resident in a newly established oral surgery program. And I thought it would be fun. They wanted me to sign up for 3 years. I told them no way, I would go for one. And so I agreed to go, if I could go for one, see how it was. And I went down there in 1951, and I've been in Birmingham, Alabama, and at the University of Alabama at Birmingham now since 1951,
well, that
which
was
is 48 years.
Successful mentor that you had, and a success in terms of your career as it went through after that initial year. Tell me about him a little bit and how he influenced your life.
He was had a great impact, not only on myself, but a lot of people in dentistry. People like Dr. Joe Volker, Maynard Hine, and many others were just the leaders. He had graduated from Indiana dental school, took an internship at Morningside Hospital in New Jersey, if I remember correctly, where he met his wife, Juanita, who was a nurse. He then went to Rochester as a Carnegie Fellow at Rochester School of Medicine and Dentistry, and was one of the early people getting into research, and did some research on fluoride, and hooked up with some people there that Dr. Sidney Finn and others in the Newburgh study was done.
Right.
And he came to Tufts as a young professor in about, I guess, 43, 44. And I knew him there very, very well. And
but he must have seen something special in you.
Well, I don't know.
And you must have mutually sort of sought him out as well.
He knew everything about everyone. You know, when I got there, he knew where I'd gone to school, what type of grades I had made, what I had accomplished and what I hadn't accomplished. And so it was...
but he saw potential and
excitement.
excitement.
But he was... so I went down to Alabama, and he was just a magnificent person, had great vision, and had the opportunity to build a school of dentistry from start. And many people asked him, and I'd asked him, why did you leave Tufts, which was a real fine institution, to go there? Well, he felt he could start anew. And there were some things that he perceived, I think, in dental education that would be very important. One of the things was that I think that he understood very well what the atmosphere was at that time in the early 50s. The United States had come out of World War II. There was emphasis on health. Medical research, biomedical research, was being given a high priority. Right. The federal government was putting money into it. And I think as he looked at that, along with the medical dean that was there, they envisioned going ahead and developing basic science departments that would be joint departments, which would permit them to have not only the breadth, but the depth to create an atmosphere for research, not just for teaching medical students and dental students, but for carrying out one of the traditions that you should do if you're part of the university, is extension of knowledge through research. So by having joint departments and pooling limited resources, they could have better breadth and depth. And it brought together interdisciplinary and an amalgamation, to use a dental term, of people. So that and what that eventually led to, that as they understood there would be emphasis on biomedical research, that as money was available at the national level, they had together a team, interdisciplinary team, that were doing research. There were not barriers between departments or schools. So you could do interdisciplinary research, and you could get somebody in physiology or biophysics, and they could be working with somebody in biochemistry. And he encouraged people in the dental faculty to think about obtaining an academic doctorate and a PhD in biochemistry, or perhaps pharmacology. So
you had a mixing and matching and evolution.
Of people. And it set the stage then when research became interdisciplinary. You didn't have to build it.
It was already there as a core.
And then I think the other thing that he understood and perceived, that if you're going to have a great academic health science center, you need to be part of a university, and an integral part of the university, and you should do research, and you should also contribute to the mission of the university. And I think he understood that very, very well. And he inbred it. This was a spirit that I think that was within all of us that were part of that team.
I can tell by looking at your face when you speak about him how much of a key figure he was in your life.
He was.
And I can also tell from reading many of your articles how much you took the base that he created and really evolved it. Tell me a little bit about, you came into that environment in Alabama from New England and started your oral surgery training, and then went off to medicine. How did that next step get taken?
I thought that there should be a strong bridge between medicine and dentistry in the area of oral and maxillofacial surgery. And you can build this various ways, and I thought that it might be well to go ahead and get a medical degree. I was required to take a lot of courses in physical diagnosis, so I just enrolled and did that. I was making great money in those days. I got $25 as an intern, $50 as a resident. And so when I finished, what I did was I had the opportunity to get a job doing pre-ops on patients going to surgery the next day in anesthesia, work them up. I got $40 a month for that. I did some dentistry out at Boys Industrial School. Yeah, on weekends when I had time, and I did externship when I was in medical school out at a hospital covering the emergency room. So I was able to do that, and it was a wonderful experience. And the thing about the medical center between medicine and dentistry, which came together with an extension center that the University of Alabama had put there, everybody envisioned that, where we were going. We sort of knew what the plan was, and there was cross-fertilization so that you had people who were educated and trained in medicine and dentistry that went into pathology, but taught an emphasis on oral pathology. People who went into anesthesiology, but with an emphasis on anesthesiology and pain control and anxiety control on an outpatient basis, serving in the School of Dentistry. Had those that went into oral maxillofacial surgery, same way. Others got their PhD in the various basic sciences, would teach in the basic sciences, do research there, and then bring it back. And by that bridging, and then the third area, of course, was PhD in doctors in public health, because that's such an important part of dental care and the delivery of dental care and understanding the needs of the community totally, rather than just the needs of, let's say, dentistry. And so that was fostered very, very well, and strong bridges were built between the Extension Center and then later on, as the university started to emerge, involvement in biomedical engineering, computer and information science, statistics, biomathematics, all of those areas that are so important to schools in medicine and dentistry and the health sciences were sort of pulled together. And you had these people in dentistry that had this background.
That was a very rich background.
And it helped, I know me, immeasurably by having spent time in internal medicine and surgery and OB and psychiatry and pediatrics, as I could take what I learned there and bring it to dentistry and teaching and relating with students and residents. So
well, you know, I think you were an extremely young dean. You became dean of the School of Dentistry 11 years after you graduated dental school. Is that correct?
That's right.
How did that feel, and why did you go into administration?
Oh, I wasn't going to. As a matter of fact, I had, what I had done, I was starting to take Spanish because I became very interested in international projects, and I wanted to spend a year on Project Hope, and I had sort of agreed to sign up to go to Peru, Lima, Peru, on Project Hope.
On the big ship.
Which was big ship.
That's right.
And I thought it was wonderful, and I had a friend, Marv Revson, who had been to Vietnam on Project Hope. And I thought it was a great opportunity to do that. So I'd signed up to go, not for a year, for 6 months. And so it was at that time that it was suggested that maybe I should be dean, or the search committee approached me, or Dr. Volker did. And I told him, no, I couldn't, administration. I was more interested in my surgery and doing other things and so forth. And Dr. Volker had a long talk with me about the way of an administrator, and perhaps maybe I ought to rethink it. And then brought in the president of the university, which was Dr. Frank Rose, who was president of the University of Alabama at that time. And they both talked to me at length about the opportunity to become involved in administration, and said there are many ways that, schools and universities can be administered, and there are those who come out of the ranks, and then, although you may not have any special training in administration, an MBA or something like that, or a doctorate in higher administration or higher education, that by being an administrator, you could help mold and bring together people, and sometimes you could accomplish more by being involved in administration rather than being just
into your specialty
people.
area.
That's right, in the specialty area. And so they convinced myself and a colleague who was dean of the School of Medicine, or was not dean of the School of Medicine, to take the dean of the School of Medicine and Dentistry at the same time. And his name was Dick Hill, and we had a great time together. Dr. Volker became vice president for health affairs, and he was also director of graduate studies and research at the medical center at that time. So the three of us had the great opportunity to work together for over a number of years until he was named president of the university when it became a separate university in 1969.
So this is where you had made the comment earlier about a university being built around a dental school.
Yes.
And the integration.
Right. Well, actually, it was
Can you address that?
I think it was sort of unique in higher education that a school of medicine, an extension center of the university, because the University of Alabama at that time put extension centers in the urban areas in the state, recognizing that there was a transition going on in the United States where people were moving from the rural area to the urban area, and you needed to meet the needs of that. And that fit very, very well with what the philosophy was in the medical center, to serve people. And so the Extension Center, School of Medicine and Dentistry came together to give birth to a university, which is rather unique because usually it's the other way around, that universities then help establish schools of the health professions. And it's been a lot of fun to watch that happen.
Well, one of the things that was done while you were dean was the University of Alabama was the first place that studied expanded function dental auxiliaries.
Right.
And you had some very definitive findings, very positive findings in terms of the contribution of auxiliaries and productivity without compromising quality.
That's right.
Can you address that time and also the role of expanded functions today?
There was a great debate going on. Did you need more dental schools to meet the dental manpower needs? And it was argued at a national level we need a lot more dental schools and so forth. There were some who felt that that probably wasn't the approach. And were there other ways of doing it? If you look at some of the other professions, such as medicine, they have used others to expand their functions and increase their ability to serve more people. Seemed good to look at in dentistry. So we had some people that from the Public Health Service that had grants to look at expanded functions or dental auxiliaries. And at one time, a dentist operated pretty independently. Had a dentist, had a secretary, had somebody that sort of served as an assistant, but they mixed restorations and watched the dentist and made other appointments and set up the trays. But the whole concept of an assistant sitting down with the dentist and carrying out care to the patient made the dentist more productive. It's just like if you're a surgeon and you're trying to operate, if you don't have somebody who retracts up this sort of thing, and you can't see. So that if you're in there, you're trying to do your restorative work and there's problems with saliva or other things, if you got somebody right there that's working with you, and the minute you need an instrument can give it to you. So that was the first step, was to train auxiliaries well to make the dentist more efficient. Another thing was, what are those duties, and it could be done, that were reversible if not done correctly. And so Dr. Pelton and others initiated a study at UAB, and there were other places that did it too, and showed that pretty definitively in the 60s that you could take and almost double your production with an expanded function assistant working with a dental assistant, the standard dental assistant. Could do, and you could increase your productivity, you could do more work, charge less, and some of those things were not acceptable at that time.
It was controversial.
To say the least, it was very controversial.
I am trying to find something that you had said, and I thought that it was a very insightful comment. If you give me a minute here.
Yeah, but it's interesting today to look at states that have expanded functions for dental auxiliaries and are looking at that. And isn't that wise to, I've always said, to at least look at something? And if you're not compromising the quality of care, and I think as we get into issues of dental costs and escalating costs, that if you can still provide that service at less by using somebody to assist you better and do some of those things which don't require the education and training of a dentist, then you can be addressing the costs of care, keeping it reasonable for the public, which I think is very important.
Well, and one of the things you said was it's the responsibility of the university to search for the truth and provide information that could be subsequently weighed, adopted, or rejected as deemed appropriate by our profession. And I think that's what you're saying here in
Yeah.
terms of the research outcomes and whether it's implemented in policy.
And there were some, it was some interesting things. There were some students that went through that had just a full-time chair-side assistant who could complete their clinical dentistry, and at the same time, they weren't using expanded functions, but at the same time could pursue a master's degree and in a 4-year period not only come out with a dental degree, but could come out with a master's having completed a research because they were more effective and efficient in doing the clinical aspects of dentistry when they had a full-time chair-side assistant to help them. And that sort of opened the opportunities for students to think about careers in research and investigation, and I think had a very positive impact upon the student body.
Well, you have seen dental education from all different perspectives, from a faculty member, a dean, from the president of the university. What do you see in terms of the role of the School of Dentistry in the university and its relationship to the community at large?
Oh, it's got to be an integral part. I think that unless schools of dentistry are an integral part of the university, that they are going to have continued difficulty. We have had schools of dentistry that have closed. I think there have been 7 or 8 in the last 10 to 12 years. And a lot of it is financial. And I think that a lot of the schools of dentistry, I know those schools of dentistry, have to be subsidized by some extent by the university or by the state if they're public. And one of the things that you've got to prove your worth to the university and that you are in step with a mission that the university has set for themselves. So I think schools of dentistry should never be insular, isolated, should be integrated, and the cross-fertilization that I spoke of between the basic sciences and dentistry, public health and dentistry, business, schools of business and dentistry, so that you have that. People who get dental degrees in administration that are important. In engineering, because of the materials, biomedical engineering. Encourage people to get their dental degrees in this sort of thing, biomedical engineering. In the areas of medicine and dentistry with that if you can get involved in that, even contributing to the undergraduate education of students, whether you teach a course in comparative dental anatomy, whether you teach a course in anatomy, and you can assist in helping the university meet those needs, so that within the university being part of it, being part of the committee structures, being part of helping the university raise money, and going out.
And going beyond.
Going beyond your alumni and patients you might have that would be willing and interested in investing in the university and being part of that team, because universities have to raise money. I think the other thing then, beside within the university, is the university has become more sensitive to the needs of the community and society. And as the university attempts society to address issues of urbanization, housing, place-bound, education, violence, whatever, I think that as they move into the university, into the community itself, that dentistry ought to be moving with them, whether it's healthcare clinics that they're establishing out in communities where you need it, educating K through 12 children, dental students.
It's doing a wonderful
and
concept.
A lot of schools are doing it, working with departments of public health, your dental students. Having your dental students and your dental faculty involved in the care of the institutionalized patients, whether they be in nursing homes or trailers or the rural or the people that can't get care. That brings and makes the dental school and medical school a very, very important part of the university and a big asset that the university will treasure if you're a contributor. And by getting out, I think, and becoming involved in community affairs, not just by, having your clinics available at times when people are working full-time, having Saturday clinics, evening clinics, having the people in private practice work with you, serving a need, you get a lot of credit, a lot of credit. And there's a big need. It's something you should do as a profession.
Well, I noticed that not only in your professional life, but in your private life, you also played a key role in the community at large and continue to through your community service activities for the symphony, the Boy Scouts, United Way.
Well, you know, the community's been great to the university. The way I've always looked at it is being with a public institution. The people who built universities, for the most part, in Stardom, were the poor people whose nickels and dimes and taxes helped provide a tax base to help establish, let's say, the University of Alabama School of Dentistry, the University of Alabama School of Medicine, the University of Alabama at Birmingham. And I think the university and its components should always be cognizant of the fact they exist because the community believed in them. The community believed that if they were sick or ill, they would be cared for. If they needed jobs, there was an opportunity to work at the university. We employ 14,000 people at the University of Alabama at Birmingham. Our budget is $1.2 billion today. And third, there's an opportunity to receive an education either as an adult, if you're place-bound, or if you can't afford to go away, that you're serving that community of interest. And I think as long as universities, including their schools of dentistry, remember that, they will engender the support of people in the community.
Well, I think it's that kind of relationship with both individuals and organizations that is key, and the blending that sort of is a cross-cutting theme that I've noticed in both your CV and in the writings. One area that you have highlighted, a very important characteristic in curriculum, is flexibility and giving maybe a unique outreach to those students that might be unusual, that may have unique skills to contribute to dentistry or medicine in a different way than the mold.
Right.
Can you address that?
Well, I'm very proud of what the students have accomplished in going out and educating the students in the early grades about dental health and dental care and getting to know a lot of those children and the impact that they are making. This has been done through some of the dental fraternities, but a lot of the student groups at the University of Alabama at Birmingham are involved in it. The nurses are, the undergraduate students are, various sororities, fraternities, medical students, and getting out in that community. And it makes them, and we highlight when they do this. And you have to give the students the opportunity to have flexible time to do things. Everything shouldn't be lockstep. And students are wonderful today. They're brighter than they've ever been, and I think giving them the opportunity to select an elective first thing out of the day is fine. I think we need to have more of our students out in the offices of some of the people who are practicing and in public health clinics and working at and serving the healthcare needs of the institutionalized. And they then not only get an experience for doing their clinical dentistry and serving the needs of very special patients, but it raises their social consciousness as to the needs of very special populations that a lot of people are unaware of. They've never been in a mental institution or don't perceive what happens in nursing homes. And that forgotten group and the people who can't. And I think our students, and I think our dean is doing a great job of getting them involved in that and giving them the flexibility and comprehensive care and not lockstep and not requirements. And it's a joy to watch and see.
Well, you also embody the combination of medicine and dentistry, and there's a lot of evolving evidence now, as there has been over decades, of the association of oral diseases and systemic conditions. You've written about this and try to live it in the curriculum as well. Where do you think we're going with this? If you were to design the ideal curriculum for a practitioner of head and neck health or diseases, what would it look like?
I'd have the opportunity of them to be educated in the basic sciences that were joint departments, and I probably am doing that because I'm biased, that teach medical students and dental students, maybe not all the same, but the same faculty, that they'd have the opportunity to practice together and interact with. I think that people in dentistry should be involved in the teaching of medical students, and I think that the people in medicine, if the dentists have not been educated and trained to teach physical diagnosis, medicine, and then investigate together and look together, you know, infectious diseases, and, you know, as we talk about periodontal disease and the other things, and the diseases within the oral cavity. We've always said the oral cavity is the mirror of the mouth, the health and disease. We say that, but we need to get more involved in that. And if that means people who are duly qualified in medicine and dentistry to bring that about, great. I think that we'll see a coming together of more of that. But the dentist also has to still have the opportunity to develop those psychomotor skills that require a lot of
very special surgical skills.
And you can't compartmentalize that. I think that we need to do more of teaching in the medical model, a mentor-preceptor type, where a program has been started, a preclinical program in dentistry where you have one faculty member responsible for a group of students, and as they learn their preclinical technique, then he can demonstrate to them how you do a class 1 or how you do a prophy, and then they can assist them and then or assist her, and then they can go ahead and do the easy ones, and then they can work with their upper class and men and women who are doing more complex things and working with them, so that it's a hands-on. I always thought it was, rather than do it by trial and error, that if you can be part of the treating team, the surgical team, I mean, that's the way you train
so you can play an expanded function role as a first-year student and start contributing.
And, you know, if you're going to do something in the operating room, you read about it, hear about it, you go in and you serve as an assistant, and then you do it. And, you know, the dental treatment, cutting of hard and soft tissues is a surgical procedure, and the best way to do that is visualize it and look at it. And we've got all kinds of technology now that we can be using, because the biggest, to teach students and to enrich them. And a lot of schools are doing this. I'm not saying it's not being done, but I think it can be done and will be done. My big concern is, how do we continue to attract outstanding young people to think about academics and research? And with the tremendous costs for dental education, I think the Institute of Medicine and study in 1992 indicated that the average cost was $55,000 a year to educate a dental student, compared to, I think medicine was about 32 or 34. I forget those figures. But by the time people get out of college and 4 years of dental school, the indebtedness is huge. If you really want to take and get some of those people who are coming along that you know have the ability and talents to get into academics, either through research or teaching, how can you encourage that when there is such indebtedness? There's always a tendency to go ahead and say, well, I'm going to specialize and go out and make money and pay off that bill so I can start to think about a house and many other things. And I think that we need to find a way of providing money for those people who want to do that, that want to take that additional training in biomedical engineering or biochemistry or immunology and infectious diseases. And I think it would be a great national investment to do that. The NIDCR is doing that in many areas. We need more of it, and the opportunity for scholarships, you know, the National Health Service Corps, we get,
right.
But you know, we give scholarships for people to go in and serve in the military. Why not those who are thinking about the possibility of academics that can be identified early in this
to
sort of
have
thing?
some kind of a investment in those that are going to go into service for health enhancement or for health education
Right.
of the profession.
But I think that we need
that's
to
a
think
wonderful
about that.
idea.
And I think that, you know, I've been very proud of some of the specialty groups that are starting to come together, and also the Academy of General Dentistry and the American Dental Association, some of whom are providing fellowships for people to take an additional year beyond training, providing they go back in and spend a year or two in academics. And I think that enticement might be interesting. And, you know, in dentistry, the commitment that I think the people in general practice to get their masterships and this sort of thing is really refreshing to me to see that come along. And I just think, though, that we need to find a means of providing support for those very bright young people that could make wonderful academicians and contribute to future generations. And it's through research that dentistry has made such significant progress. And when you stop and look today at what can be done through implants and craniofacial surgery for correction of congenital and acquired and developmental deformities of the head and neck that are being done that were just unthought of, the materials we have to work with today, the ability to treat infectious diseases. I remember the terrible infections in osteomyelitis we used to see, and tuberculosis. I remember seeing tuberculosis.
You don't see that at this point.
You don't see that now because of the advances we've had in antimicrobials and antibiotics, and the ability to sedate people and the anesthetics, all of those things. And we need to continue that.
I think that the areas that are in front of us are very, very exciting and extensive, but I think the pace of change in the last 50 years is phenomenal. But I want to ask you some questions. What did you see as the most challenging aspects of your career?
I think becoming involved in administration without really having been formally trained to be an administrator, and I've always said I've had on-the-job
training.
On-the-job training.
We're always on-the-job training.
You know, probably some people who work with me and been part of the team would say, well, he's 9 miles of hard road or bad road as a learning experience. But, you know, if you look at people and see who are the really great leaders, you can learn a lot from them. You know, I watched Tinsley Harrison, who was my professor of medicine, who wrote, I think, the definitive textbooks in medicine. Magnificent teacher. Had great ideas and this sort of thing. I looked at Dr. Volker and many others, and the people that I've seen that have been good administrators, if you watch them, and what it is the ability, I think, to understand what's happening at the present, what's going to develop in the future, set some priorities that you think you can address, get people together, and see if you can set a common goal that you can work toward. Try and provide those resources to them and get out of the way and be the cheerleader. But
that's a nice model.
If you watch what people do that you think are good, you can learn an awful lot. And a lot of times you can learn more by being in a preceptor or mentor than you can in a formal administrative class. That's not saying that the understanding of finances and the understanding of administration is not important, but I think that if you watch and you observe, if you're sensitive and develop good interpersonal skills, and you know, I think so many people in dentistry have that, because it's very difficult when you're performing dentistry, when you have a frightened child or an anxious adult, to be carrying out procedures when they're fully conscious, gain their confidence, have them become a participant. You develop wonderful interpersonal skills. And I think if you can take those interpersonal skills and use it in the area of administration, I think a lot of people in the healing arts have, that you can get people to think about leadership. And I think that's so important.
Well, you took those interpersonal skills and you became a major cheerleader and making things happen at the University of Alabama. Which things that you created and that you cheered for are you most proud of?
The accomplishments of students.
Of individual students.
And to see the number of people who've gone out and become leaders in their community, in the governmental services, have become mayors, have taken leadership roles in their professional organizations, have gone out and headed up community way endeavors such as United Way and Red Cross drives, who have taken leadership role to help raise money, to endow funds, to educate others. I think that is a great thing to have seen and observed. And also, I think the satisfaction that comes from truly helping others, particularly patients. And
are you still seeing patients now?
Only through students. I gave up my practice, but that was one of the most wonderful things. Was some of my closest friends have been my patients, and I had the opportunity and understanding that even though I was, when I became dean and vice president for health affairs and director of the medical center and president of the university, I continued to operate I could do elective surgery. And I didn't do that for the purpose of just wanting to do it. It was fun, and I'd rather do that than go play golf. And furthermore, it sort of reminded you why you got in the profession. You know, so you wind up in administration, and I think if you can have the opportunity to go back and continue to participate in patient care, it keeps you up. I think it's very difficult to keep up in research. I mean, I think you got to get that research all the time. But in patient care, you know, you can keep up with it, and it gives you the reward of working with students and residents and watching them develop. And it also then, if a health center is part of the responsibility of a vice president, which it is, or a president, that you learn a lot about what's wrong if you're out there using the operating rooms and the nursing services, and you don't have to get the information secondhand, but you can get it firsthand.
You experience it directly.
Yeah.
Now, you had to balance a lot of things to get all of those different roles you played concurrently, and you must have had tremendous support from your family.
Oh, great.
Could you tell me about your wife and your wonderful sons?
Well, she's a nurse, worked on the psychiatric ward, so she was well prepared.
We won't go into that.
But Alice has been very, very supportive, and I've had to be away a lot. And when I was chair of the department and president, had to travel a lot. She was very understanding. Had 4 great sons, and they were all great, and they've always been very, very supportive. And I tried to get them all to go out of state to go to college because I wanted to view other areas of the country and be exposed. None of them listened to me. They all stayed within the state. They were educated. They're all very successful. Two are lawyers. One's a dentist and specializes in endodontics. And they all live in Birmingham.
That's wonderful for you.
So if they'd gone to other institutions or outside of the area, they probably would have met somebody, married them, and never have returned. And so the four boys and their wives all live right there in Birmingham with our 8 grandchildren. And we have the opportunity to be very close.
You've created what your parents created with you and your brother and sister in Birmingham.
Yeah.
I wanted to change. You were moved from New England to Birmingham, Alabama, and I was curious what it was like to be there during the civil rights movement and the university roles.
It was quite a change. I was within the university and didn't have a lot of time to be outside. But the 60s, the 50s and 60s were troubled times, and Birmingham certainly was highlighted. I've seen more progress in Birmingham than I have anywhere. And one could say, well, you know, it had to go farther. I'm not sure. I saw evidences of what I would call discrimination that when I first returned to Boston after having been down to Alabama for a while, of going in and watching restaurants in a very subtle way refuse to serve African Americans and their family. And all of that was wrong. And but Birmingham has made, I think, great progress. I think the university has. One of the things that I think has helped us very much is that we've had a mayor now almost for 20 years by the name of Richard Arrington, who's black, has provided exemplary leadership. He has a PhD in biology, worked very closely with the University of Alabama at Birmingham, has been very helpful to us. And one of the things you asked me before that I feel good about, that I felt good about, was a program that we were able to start called a Comprehensive Minority Faculty and Student Recruitment Program. That is, we looked at the issues of our faculty, that the number of tenured faculty was shrinking that were African Americans. And so we talked with the faculty and the deans about that and started a program and to grow the pool of African Americans and minorities in our program. You know, dentistry, I think, has done a very good job. About 38–40% are women.
When was this? When was the genesis of this
I
program?
started in 1986 and initiated it in 87. But we had started before then in our School of Dentistry. And,
so this was for the whole university?
This was for the whole university because we were languishing in the whole area of the university. But we had started in the School of Dentistry back in the 60s, actively recruiting. And we had some wonderful support from some of the people in the community to support those individuals, because one of the things is after a lot of the people cannot afford to go, and you need to find scholarships, and we were able to do that. Once we did that, we were pretty successful. And then it was done in medicine and nursing and the other areas, but we needed to do it broadly in the university. And in talking with the African American faculty at the University of Alabama at Birmingham, one of the things we found out was it was their feeling. It took a while to sort of get this out, but it was their feeling that if you're really going to do something, you don't accomplish it by simply putting on the bottom of a piece of paper affirmative action employer or appointing somebody, that you have to give it the highest priority, and that should be in the offices of the president. So I established an area of that for minority affairs in the presidency to look at certain things. Getting minorities involved in business ventures with the university, in bidding if we were going to construct. Having the opportunity for the place-bound African Americans in our city to have summer scholarships. So we take them between the 11th and 12th grade, provide them with $1,000 for 10 weeks, get them with a mentor, and we were going to do 30, and we wound up getting support for 55 the first year, and we've done it ever since. They did well, then we guaranteed them full scholarship of $2,500 a year, which would cover all the tuition, and $1,000 for summer employment at minimum. And we had 60 of those, rolling 15 every year. We increased it to 20. And then at the PhD level, we paid all tuition, and they had a stipend of $15,000 through their PhD. And then postdocs, with the first year postdoc being funded 100% by the university. Next year, 66% by the university, 33% by the department. Then we brought in visiting faculty and scholars for a year, 6 months. And then gave each department $30,000 for anyone they recruited and identified to a tenure-earning track in the university for support for their research so they could be advanced toward the tenure. And it's had phenomenal success. We, I think, have now, the last year, if I remember correctly, the largest, third largest African-American full-time enrollment at the undergraduate level of all Research One universities in the United States, Carnegie Research One universities. And the number of graduate students has just exploded, and it's sort of nice to see that the chair of the Department of Music is somebody who was from Birmingham, that was part of that program, that came back. He's a conductor in music, PhD in music theory, is from Ohio State. He's been composer and conductor for Stevie Wonder, and was up to conduct the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra not long ago.
You're kidding.
And
Wonderful.
The head of our program in foreign languages is out of that program, so it's been interesting to watch.
But just listening to you as you describe that, you had a very intricate interweaving at every level of both the community outreach or in high school and elementary school, as well as through the whole time period in college and then graduate programs. It sounds also that the commitment on the part of the business community surrounding the university was great, and probably the state legislature was supportive as well.
They're all very good. And also, you know, you've got to have the support of the faculty. And there wasn't a special appropriation for this. This came off the top of our appropriation. So that meant...
It was a priority given.
It was priority given, and by the deans and the faculty after the program was put together. And we spent a year looking at it. And what we found out was the problem was the pool. And so you could increase if you move somebody from one institution to another. That doesn't help the problem. And we've got to do the same thing in our schools of dentistry, and that's going to take scholarships, just like I was talking about scholarships for the education and training of academicians
and researchers.
We need to do the same thing for that 1/3 of a nation, because that's what we're going to have, a larger degree of minorities, and if we do not have representation from that group, it would be inappropriate and short-sighted on the part of our faculties and our universities, and that's something we've got to keep our eye on.
No, it's definitely, and in some parts of our country, there is no longer a minority.
That's right.
And I think that we need to really prepare nationally much more aggressively than we have, in the model that you have sort of laid out is key.
The other area is, I think our schools of dentistry, and a lot of them are doing an excellent job, is on the international scene, and I think that that's so important, and relative to research and what we can do, and also the education and training of those people who come from other universities to our universities to study.
Tell me a bit about the international outreach and the School of Public Health efforts.
Well, we have it in all schools. We have on campus at any one time about 1,000 foreign nationals. About 500 of those are faculty from other institutions. And we only take them when they are sponsored by, when they are nominated by their institutions to come, and then they return there. The benefit of that is it brings to our student body a different culture that is quite unique, and we have a international house that was built by a private group there. And then it has established exchanges between other universities and our universities, particularly in the health sciences area, where we have our students going there to Thailand, we have our students going to China, we have our research programs going to China, in Europe, we've been in Iraq, educating and training people there, and we have these exchange programs that have just been so important to us and have brought so much to us, and at the same time we think we're helping that other part of the world and bring together understanding, because I feel very, very strongly that if we're going to have universal understanding and peace, we're going to do it through universities and not through governments.
Well,
that's a biased point of view.
And I think back on the comment you made about Project Hope and your hopes of going on that. You've done that through the university activities by creating sort of an extension of hope through the university. I agree with you. I think that it is going to take the intellectual bonding or the bonding of cultures that is going to make the extension of sort of global health or peace work.
Sure is.
So.
And dentistry can play a big role.
And dentistry can play a key role. And has.
And has.
That's
and they're
right.
to be congratulated. They really are, I think.
As an oral surgeon and a dentist and a physician, I wanted to ask you about your opinion about specialization in dentistry and where you think we should be going.
Well, I believe in specialization. I think dentistry is to be congratulated because I think it has a right balance at the present time. Last time I looked at it, it was about 15% specialists, 85% general practitioners. And so that we have not made the mistake of over-specialization. My feeling is that there should be more and more done by those in general practice. And if it's done by continuing education, or if you would, a year of internship of some sort, I think it'd be very appropriate. Like, I think people in the general practice of dentistry ought to be more involved in doing implants. They're the ones that do the restorations themselves, and the prosthodontists. And I think, why not do some of those implants? Not all of them, but because some of them are more complex. But there are many I think they could do, and they need to. And I think in a way the continuing education program that's been promoted by the Academy of General Dentistry is excellent. You know, I just applaud them for getting people interested in that. And I think that we should not be prescriptive as to who can do things. I believe if you are competent, you should have the opportunity, and that competency should be based on your education and training and your ability to demonstrate it. And I think that we have a good balance now. And the specialists have, I think, an obligation to help those in general practice get better.
Now, with a rapidly growing knowledge base and specialty areas evolving, for example, in medicine, there are 20-some-odd specialties. Do you advocate a continuous lifelong learning model for the general practitioner in dentistry, or do you see a different profile of specialties, but still a confined profile of specialties evolving?
I think more, I don't see a further division of within specialties in dentistry, all right. I think in part, there might have been too much of that in medicine. Who should do the percutaneous interventional therapies. You have so many, and I think that you need to have considerable expertise to do it. And I think in dentistry that, I think there are a lot of orthodontics, that in part can be done by those in general practice, part of it. The orthodontist may be unhappy when I say that, but I think that's a possibility. And it is being done. I think there's all kinds of orthodontics, and I think there are those cases that you need very, very special attention. You need those people in orthodontics that are treating orthognathic patients. And if you don't treat in concert with surgeons those deformities and only do it occasionally, I think it's a problem. So I think there are all kinds of degrees there, but I would like to see the generalists becoming more involved in doing things, and through continuing education, and maybe we do need to have a year somehow spread out of returning to school to spend time to get the latest.
It's actually an interesting model of trying to continue through your career and development with returning back to the university so you incrementally extend your degree. I wanted to ask a question. You had spoken about the merits of interdisciplinary, interscience approach to research and its underpinnings specifically in dental research. If you could address that. And you have in part.
Right. Well, I think that if we're talking about diseases of the oral cavity, a lot of which are, you have infectious diseases that have caused our problems in looking at it and involving immunology. If you have people that are involved in immunology and studying this, if you look at the various things that are happening in the oral cavity and how resistant it is to infectious agents, and what a wonderful balance it is, and what the role the salivary glands play there, and the microbial balance and flora. It's a wonderful area to look at, interdisciplinary. And as we talk about infections which are becoming more and more prevalent, whether it be HIV, and we have the tuberculosis that are coming back, and others, I mean, you have a lot of people now that are dying from infectious diseases and infections that didn't, because we had the antimicrobials that could handle them. And I think that dentistry ought to be playing a big role in that, and the fact that infectious process and diseases in the oral cavity having impact upon other parts, which has been shown very, very well for a number of years, but now they're honing down on it. I think that's an exciting area to get involved in. We ought to be working with those with obstetrics and pediatrics and looking at what is the relationship of that oral health and babies that are delivered in prematurities and other things as it relates to systemic disease and health.
And you're seeing your university right in the midst of that.
You bet. In
now,
dentistry.
You run every day.
Yes.
And you must, in addition, enjoy music. Could you tell me a little bit about your extracurricular activities?
Well, I love to do a lot of things. I like music. My mother invited me to participate by piano lessons early.
That's a
Boston
nice word.
Symphony. And I loved it. And when Alabama lost its orchestra, Alabama Symphony Orchestra, because of bankruptcy in 1992, a group of women got together and helped bring it back. Mr. Elton Stevens played a big role in raising the money. And Alice Robinson Stevens, Mr. Stevens' wife, who currently is dead, but she was a wonderful woman that was very helpful in making a contribution that made possible the building of the Performing Arts Center at the University of Alabama at Birmingham, which is a magnificent hall, and we've had the good fortune of bringing the National Symphony Orchestra there. We have an orchestra back now in symphony, and I love it, and we're performing at the Alice Robinson Stevens Performing Arts Center. Because of my affection for Mrs. Stevens and my love for music, I was happy to take on the presidency of that, and I've had a lot of good workers help me, and we have a wonderful symphony, and recruited a conductor, the associate conductor from the Boston Symphony, to Birmingham.
Went back
to Boston.
Back to Boston, made a nice circuit.
And it's been very rewarding. Love to fish. I love to spend time with my sons, and one of these days I keep telling people I'm going to take up golf. I try to, but I'm a terrible hacker. But I just enjoy people, and I enjoy life. Very
well,
much.
I can see that that's happened. You've also received many awards and honorary degrees. Which of those are you most proud of?
Oh, I just don't know. It's hard to say. I appreciate all of them that have been given to me. I guess the Distinguished Alumnus Award by the University of Alabama at Birmingham, the Alumni Association that honored me in that way, and meant a great deal to me. But it wasn't because of me. I've had lots of help, and any honors that accrue to all of those who contributed to that individual and who have worked with that individual. And I firmly believe that. I firmly believe that. So those honors were due to what others had contributed.
It's beautifully said. What would you like to be remembered for?
Hopefully in having made a difference in some people's lives, and hope that I've contributed back to them to the extent that so many have contributed to me.
Well, this has been a terrific interview.
Well,
I've really enjoyed it.
Chatting with you.
And I just wanted to thank you very much.
I'm honored to be here.
I've learned a lot, and the college appreciates your time and looks to you for any further guidance and wisdom and visionary advice that you can give us.
It's a great group, the college.
Thank you.